I thought I was just fixing her garage light, but when she said, "That's the first time I've felt okay in weeks," I knew this wasn't just a favor. I just didn't know yet how much she'd change my life. Stick around. This story doesn't go where you think it will. Like what you hear? Tap, like and subscribe. It really helps us keep telling stories that stay with you. My name's Logan. I'm 25, live in a small Oregon town just off the highway, and fix cars for a living. I've been working at the same auto shop since high school. Oil changes, brake pads, engine jobs. Grease under my nails and a wrench in my hand feels more familiar than holding a pen. My life's not exciting. I wake up, drink bitter diner coffee, head to the shop, come home, maybe fix something around my old rental. Weekends, some beers, a little guitar, maybe shoot pool with the guys. It's a rhythm, predictable, safe. I wasn't looking for anything to change. Then she moved in. Across the street, there's this weathered 2-story house. Been empty for a couple years, roof sagging, porch cracked, yard like a jungle. Everyone thought it was cursed or something. But one Thursday, my day off, a moving truck pulled up. I was outside fixing the hinges on my fence when I saw her. Tall, late 30s maybe. Auburn hair in a messy twist, worn jeans, boots like she'd lived in them. She hopped down from the cab like she'd done it 100 times. There was something calm about her. Not flashy, not trying, just real. I nodded politely and went back to my work. An hour later, she walked up to me. Small smile, tired eyes. "Hey, sorry to bother you. I just moved in. I'm Aaron. My garage light's acting weird and I have no idea what I'm doing. Any chance you could take a look?" Normally, I don't do house calls, but something about the way she asked, straightforward, no fluff, made it easy to say yes. "Sure," I said. "Give me 20, I'll grab my tools." The garage was chaos. Boxes, tools, a chair with one leg missing, and a flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling like it was about to fall. I tapped the switch a few times. "Just the bulb," I said. She laughed. It wasn't fake. It was the kind that's surprised to still exist. "You're kidding. That's it?" "Yup. Happens all the time. Want me to grab you some spares when I go to the store?" "That'd be amazing." I dropped them off that evening. She opened the door with a grin. "You're fast. Just trying to earn my iced tea. You're getting one. Come in." It was small talk, music in the background, a coffee mug without a handle. But when I fixed the light and she looked up at it, she said something that made me stop. That's the first time I've felt okay in weeks. Not dramatic, just honest. I didn't ask. I just said, "Then I'll count it as a good job." She smiled, a different kind, like she'd forgotten how. I left thinking I'd just helped a new neighbor. But the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that line. By Saturday, she waved at me from her porch and called out, "Logan, got a second?" She needed help with a dead outlet in the kitchen. I fixed it in 5 minutes. She offered me iced tea again. I stayed longer than I should have. We talked about squirrels, loud neighbors, and her fear of ceiling fans falling in the night. She laughed, really laughed, at a dumb story I told about a guy who glued his shoe to his car pedal. "I haven't laughed like that in a long time," she said. And then it happened. She looked at her cup for a second and said quietly, "I left someone. A few months ago. He cheated, often. I stayed too long, moved here with whatever I could fit in my SUV. No plan, just needed to breathe." She looked around the kitchen like it was still someone else's house. "This place is messy," she said, "but it's quiet. Quiet feels like luxury." I nodded, didn't push, just let her talk. And I could tell, she wasn't used to that. Then she looked at me, really looked, and said, "You make it feel safe." I don't know why, but you do. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. She handed me a roll of paper towels and said, "Help me unpack? You're officially my unpaid assistant." That night, As we laughed about her owning 12 mugs and no bowls, something shifted. It wasn't romantic. It was something deeper, something quieter, something I didn't realize I needed. But I should have known. The silence she carried had sharp edges, and eventually, I'd feel everyone. A late-night knock, a quiet dinner, and a moment she didn't mean to share. I wasn't sure what we were. Neighbors, sure, maybe friends. But there was something in the quiet between us that felt unfinished. And if I'm honest, I liked that feeling. Like I was standing at the edge of something good, but didn't have to name it yet. For the next few days, things settled into this easy rhythm. She'd wave when I got home, sometimes shout across the street to ask if I wanted leftovers. I'd bring over a beer or two and sit on her porch while the sun dipped behind the trees. It was simple, which made it dangerous, because simple things don't stay simple forever. That Friday, I stood on her porch holding a takeout bag I'd doctored up to look homemade. Don't judge. I even brought a bottle of wine to distract from the crime. She opened the door in a faded t-shirt and jeans. Hair up, no makeup. Still managed to look like a painting. "You're offering me mystery pasta and cheap wine?" She smirked. "I like to live dangerously," I said. We ate on the floor of her living room. No table, just paper plates, tired cushions, and two people trying not to overthink how good it felt. We traded childhood stories. She once swallowed a penny and lied about it for a week. I once broke my wrist trying to impress a girl on a skateboard. We laughed, harder than we should have. Then it shifted. She looked at me and asked, "Ever been in love?" The room went quiet. No music, no wind. I answered honestly. "Not really, I've dated, but never let anyone in, I guess." She nodded slowly. "Same." That silence after? It wasn't awkward, it was open. The kind of quiet that holds space for things you're not ready to say yet. Later, as I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. "You're a good person, Logan," she said. "You barely know me," I replied, half laughing. "I know enough." I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was restless, but because something about that moment felt too right. Like I'd stumbled into the kind of connection people spend years trying to find. The next day, I cleaned my house top to bottom. I'm not a clean freak, far from it. But it felt like I needed to do something. Move forward. Prepare, maybe. I didn't plan to invite her over, not really. But I caught myself lighting candles, setting the table, rearranging the living room like I was expecting company. Then I caved. I texted her, "Hey, I owe you a real dinner. Come over if you're free." She showed up 20 minutes later. No makeup, hoodie and jeans. Still, the most beautiful thing I'd seen that week. She stepped inside, looked around at the candles and the faint jazz playing from my Bluetooth speaker. "Wow," she said, amused. "Trying to impress me, Logan?" I shrugged. "Maybe." We ate slow, talked softer. The air felt different that night. Not charged, not tense, just still. She opened up more. Talked about Colorado, about the friend she lost touch with during the divorce, how she used to hike on weekends and hasn't touched a trail in a year. At one point, I said it. "I like being around you, Aaron. More than I expected." She didn't look surprised, just quiet. "I've been thinking about you too," she said. "More than I should, maybe." I took a breath. "Would you want to give this a shot? Nothing big, just try?" She hesitated, looked down at her glass. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "I'm still healing. I don't want to drag you into that." I nodded, tried not to show what I felt. "You don't owe me anything," I said, "but thanks for being honest." She reached out and touched my hand. Just briefly. "Don't disappear on me," she said. "Not planning to." She smiled, a small, sad kind of smile, and left into the night. I sat alone in the flickering candlelight, music still playing. I didn't feel rejected. I felt suspended, like I'd been asked to wait, but given no idea for how long. And maybe the hardest part was, I wanted to. When my sister came to visit, Erin saw her and misunderstood everything. After that dinner, things didn't go back to how they were. Erin and I still waved when we saw each other, still made the occasional joke across the street. But there was space now. Not angry space. Just careful space. Like we were both holding our breath, waiting for something to change, but neither of us knew what we were waiting for. I kept busy. More shifts at the shop, helped a buddy put up drywall in his garage, started running again, late evenings with earbuds in and no destination, just motion. Because standing still started to feel like suffocating. Every time I glanced across the street and saw her porch light on, something in me pulled. Not in a desperate way. Just longing. Like I was watching a chapter that never got written. Then my sister called. Lena's the opposite of me. Loud, fast, walks into a room like she owns the air. We hadn't seen each other in months, so when she said she'd be in town for the weekend, I said sure. That Saturday afternoon, I was out back grilling a few burgers when I noticed movement on Erin's porch. She was standing there, arms crossed, still, watching. We made eye contact. She didn't wave, didn't smile, then turned and went back inside. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she had something on her mind. But later, after Lena left to stay with a friend in the city, I sent a quick text. Hey, you good? No reply. The next morning, I saw her outside sweeping her porch. I walked over, casual. Morning, I said. Didn't see you yesterday. She barely looked up. I saw you. The tone was different. Not cold, but flat. Like she was building a wall mid-conversation. I hesitated. That was my sister, by the way. Lena. She came to visit. Erin paused. The broom in her hand slowed. Oh. Then quietly, like it wasn't meant to come out. She's beautiful. I didn't know what to say. I just shrugged. Thanks, I guess. She gave a small smile, the kind that doesn't touch your eyes. I thought maybe you were already moving on. That hit me. Not because it was unfair, but because of how honest it sounded. Like she'd been holding it in since she saw us laughing on the porch. Erin, I said, you told me you weren't ready. I've respected that, but I can't exactly stop my sister from dropping in. She laughed softly, finally, and shook her head. You're right. That wasn't fair. We stood there in awkward silence. Two people who'd said just enough to stir something up, but not enough to settle anything down. I guess I didn't realize how much it would bother me, she said. I looked at her closely. So you do feel something? She didn't answer right away. But when she did, it was quiet and clear. Of course I do. I think about you more than I should. I'm still scared. I nodded. I get that. But I'm not made of stone either, Erin. I can't keep waiting forever without knowing what we're waiting for. She looked at me then, really looked. There was softness in her face, but a trace of fear too, like she wanted to jump, but still couldn't move her feet. You've been so patient, Logan, and I know I haven't made it easy. You've had your reasons. She stepped off the porch and stood in front of me, broom forgotten. I don't want to lose what we have, even if it's not a relationship, even if it's just this. I don't either. We didn't hug, we didn't kiss, we just stood there. And somehow in that quiet space, something unspoken passed between us, a kind of permission to keep going, even if we didn't know where we were headed. As the seasons change, so does something between them, until one night, neither of them can ignore it anymore. The days got shorter after that, the kind of short where you blink at 5 p.m. and the sky's already turned charcoal gray. I started noticing small things again, the leaves piling up along the sidewalk, the frost on my windshield in the mornings, the way her porch light came on a little earlier every evening, And I still noticed her. We weren't dating. We weren't even in that in-between phase where things feel like they might go somewhere. We were just two people orbiting each other, closer than strangers, not quite lovers. Somewhere in that invisible space we never really defined, but I could feel it. Something shifting. We still talked, sometimes while passing each other outside, sometimes over a beer on her porch when she said she had too many in the fridge. She'd text me now and then, usually about nothing. A weird squirrel, a recipe gone wrong, a flat tire, and I'd show up. Every time. I think a part of me kept hoping, not in a needy way, just steady, like maybe if I stayed patient enough, she'd come around. And for a while, it felt like she was. She started laughing more again, started looking me in the eye longer when we spoke. Once, she reached out and brushed a leaf out of my hair without saying a word, just smiled and went back to sipping her tea. But the thing about healing is, it doesn't move in a straight line. Some nights, she'd disappear back into her house before sunset. No wave, no smile, like something had pulled her under again. And I never asked. I didn't want her to feel watched. I just wanted her to feel safe. Then came the night that changed things. It was cold, early November. I'd just gotten home from work and was sitting on the porch with a hot drink, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sky go dark. My phone buzzed. "You up?" It was her. Before I could answer, she was already standing at the edge of my driveway, arms wrapped around herself, hoodie pulled up like armor. I stood. "Hey, everything okay?" She didn't answer, just walked past me, up the steps, and sat down on the porch swing like she'd done it 100 times before. I joined her, not too close. She stared out at the empty street. "I had a bad dream," she said. "I know that sounds ridiculous at my age, but it felt so real." "Doesn't sound ridiculous at all." She was quiet for a while. Then, in the dream, I was back in Denver. In that old apartment. He was there. But it wasn't him. It was like the version of him that still pretended to care. And I believed it. I believed everything he said. She blinked hard, like trying to keep the dream from seeping into the present. When I woke up, I felt stupid, angry, but mostly just tired. I wanted to reach for her hand but didn't. Instead, I asked, "Why'd you come over?" She turned to me slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because this is the only place I've felt safe in a long time." That broke something in me. And maybe it fixed something too. I didn't say anything. I just opened the blanket, a silent offer. She hesitated, just for a second, then leaned in. And for the first time, she rested her head on my shoulder. We sat there for a long time. No music, no talking, just the sound of the wind pushing through the trees and her quiet breathing next to me. At some point, I realized she'd fallen asleep, and I didn't move. Because maybe this was the moment I'd been waiting for all along. Not a kiss, not some grand confession. Just trust. The kind of trust you only give someone when you've been broken, and still decide to lean in. A moment of warmth leads to something more, but what happens after, neither of them is ready for. She woke up just before midnight, still on my porch swing, still wrapped in the blanket, still leaning on me like it was the most natural thing in the world. I barely moved when she stirred, just looked at her, quiet. She blinked a few times, a little dazed, then pulled back slowly. "I didn't mean to fall asleep," she whispered. "It's okay," I said. "You needed it." She looked down at her hands, like she was trying to piece something together. "I should go," she said, and maybe I should have let her. But I didn't want the night to end like that, with her slipping back into her house like a ghost. "You don't have to." She looked at me, not confused, not scared, Just tired of pretending. Then she nodded. Inside, the air felt warmer. We didn't turn on the lights, just the soft hum of the hallway lamp and the quiet shuffle of her hoodie as she slipped it off and draped it over a chair. She sat on the couch. I brought her a glass of water. She didn't touch it. We didn't talk much, just sat side by side, both of us leaning into the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. At one point, I turned to face her. "I don't want you to feel like you owe me anything," I said. She looked right at me, eyes steady, voice low. "I don't." She moved closer, and I let her. There was no rush, no music swelling in the background, just the steady rhythm of two people who'd been circling each other for too long, finally closing the distance. Her hand on my chest, my fingers brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. A breath shared between us that felt like an answer to every unspoken question. When we kissed, it wasn't urgent. It was gentle, careful, like we were both afraid we might break it if we went too fast. But we didn't stop. Not when her hands found mine. Not when she whispered my name. And not when we finally gave in to what had been building for weeks in silence. It wasn't perfect. We were both a little nervous, a little unsure, but it was real, and for once, that was enough. We lay there for a while after, not tangled, not speaking, just close. She rested her head against my shoulder again like she had earlier and whispered something I almost didn't catch. "I didn't think I'd ever feel safe again." I closed my eyes. I didn't think I'd ever feel needed. That night, we didn't talk about what it meant. We didn't define it, didn't make promises. We just held on. But the next morning, that's when the weight returned. She woke early, quietly got dressed, and stood near the door for a long time before finally saying, "Logan, I don't want you to think I regret anything. I don't, but I need a little time to figure out what last night means for me." I nodded. "Take whatever you need." She paused. "I don't want to hurt you." "You won't." But the way she looked at me, like she didn't fully believe that, stayed with me long after the door closed behind her. When silence stretches too long, will either of us be the one to break it? The morning after she left, the house felt quieter than usual, not empty, just paused, like the world around me was waiting to see what I'd do next. But I didn't chase her. I didn't send a long message, didn't call, didn't stand on her porch like some lovesick idiot. Because something in her voice before she left told me she needed space more than she needed answers. So I gave it to her. But that didn't make it easy. The days crawled by. I buried myself in work, late shifts, weekend repairs, even helped James finish rebuilding his old Chevy just for something to keep my hands busy. But my mind kept drifting, to the way she touched my hand that night, to the way she whispered my name like it meant something more than it ever had before, and to the way she stood in the doorway like she was already missing me, even as she stepped away. She didn't text, and neither did I, not because I didn't want to, but because I meant it when I said she could take all the time she needed. Then 2 weeks later, I heard her voice again. Not in a dream, not in my memory. Outside. It was a Sunday morning. I was elbow deep in the hood of a busted Ford when I heard footsteps behind me. I figured it was the mailman, or maybe James coming by early. But then she spoke. Still trying to bring that thing back from the dead? I froze, turned slowly. There she was, Erin. Same hoodie, same soft voice, same tired eyes that now held something steadier, something clearer. I wiped my hands on a rag and stood up. "You okay?" She nodded, but didn't speak right away. Just looked at the car like it gave her something to focus on. "I was avoiding you," she finally said. "Told myself I needed to sort things out. But the truth is, I didn't know how to face you. Not after everything. Not after pushing you away so many times." I said nothing. Just let her talk. I thought I was protecting myself, she said. But all I was doing was standing still, and I realized I don't want to live like that anymore. Her voice cracked, just slightly. I don't want to keep punishing myself for what he did, or for how long I let it define me. Then she looked up, straight into my eyes. I just want something real, Logan. I didn't speak right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted her to see that I believed her. So I reached for the rag again, wiped the last bit of grease from my hands, tossed it on the hood behind me, then stepped forward. It's not too late, I said. She smiled, that same quiet, disbelieving smile she gave me the first night I fixed her garage light. Then she did something she'd never done before. She leaned in first, no hesitation, no apology, just leaned her head against my chest and let me hold her. And I did. We stood there in the driveway, surrounded by the scent of motor oil and early spring wind, her hair brushing my chin, my arms wrapped around her like I'd been waiting to do from the very beginning. Later, we sat on my porch, like we used to, 2 mugs of coffee, 1 shared blanket, the silence between us finally soft, not uncertain, not unfinished. She didn't ask me what we were, and I didn't need to ask her where this was going, because for the first time, we were exactly where we were meant to be. Some stories don't need dramatic endings, just honest ones. If this story stayed with you, tap like and subscribe. It helps us bring more quiet, human stories to life.